like that, introduce about me in 2 words. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Thanks for introduction. At the outset, I'm very thankful to European Pharma and Synops Division, Swagat and
Shravan.
hmm?
Shravan.
Shravan for giving an opportunity to say a few words about the role of a combination of SGLT2 along with the DPP4 inhibitors in achieving glycemic status and to improve the cardiac profile as well as renal profile. As we all know, nowadays for last many decades, the incidence of the cardiovascular events, the coronary events in the form of acute myocardial infarction, it could be a fatal or non-fatal myocardial infarction, fatal or non-fatal stroke, fatal or non-fatal MI, and cardiovascular death is increasing or burgeoning. There are several factors are contributing to the genesis of the vascular events, of which the most important triggering factor in our country, particularly in Asia, in our country, is the diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus is the major triggering factor contributing to many vascular events, which subsequently translates into increased morbidity and perhaps mortality, second to cardiovascular death. In turn, due to the cardiovascular events in the form of fatal or non-fatal myocardial infarction, fatal or non-fatal stroke, and chronic renal ailments or renal insufficiency with end-stage renal disease also. So, the diabetes is a major metabolic disorder in our country and contributing to major incidence of the vascular events. The management, it includes lifestyle modification coupled with more hypoglycemic agents and insulins. This is the way we can able to manage the diabetes patient with high glycemic status. But nowadays, but these are the medications, the basic, that certain medicines, particularly the sulfonylureas and insulin carry certain adverse events, particularly weight gain and recurrent episodes of hypoglycemia. These recurrent nocturnal hypoglycemic episodes may contribute to the vascular events, disastrous, life-threatening vascular or coronary events in the form of myocarditis. That's the reason these adverse events are negated by a novel molecule such as SGLT2, sodium glucose co-transporter 2, as well as DPP4, dipeptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors. So the combination is immensely beneficial not only in thwarting or negating vascular events, particularly and also in maintaining or achieving glycemic parameters like fasting blood sugar, fasting blood sugar, glycosylated hemoglobin, and also non-glycemic parameters like obesity and body mass index, as well as blood pressure resistance. So these are the outline of today's talk. It includes importance of early manifestation, intensification in type 2 diabetes mellitus management, rationale for combination of empagliflozin and linagliflozin, clinical pharmacology of the empagliflozin with linagliptin, pivotal trials of the empagliflozin and linagliptin, and the various trials in the Asian or Indian population, clinical utility, adverse events related to a combination of SGLT2 and DPP4 antagonists. These are the key events. So, as we all know, the type 2 diabetes mellitus in our country, in Asiatic population, is a major burden, and diabetes is one of the major health priority in 21st century because it accounts for nearly 1.5 million, almost 10.5 lakhs of death in 2012. By 2025 or 30, this figure may be rose to 380 million people may afflicted with diabetes, and therefore this particular metabolic pathology is moving up to seventh leading cause of death across the world. As we all know, diabetes mellitus is recognized as cardiovascular disease. That means the diagnosis of the cardiovascular diabetes is equivalent to cardiovascular disease. By the time of the diagnosis of the diabetes mellitus is made, almost 50% of the population onto the edge of development of cardiovascular disease in the form of acute myocardial infarction, which might be the fatal or non-fatal myocardial infarction, fatal or non-fatal stroke, and including chronic renal insufficiency or end-stage renal heart disease, cardiovascular disease. Therefore, the diagnosis of the diabetes mellitus is almost equivalent to cardiovascular disease. That means 50% of the population who afflicted with diabetes mellitus are most onto the edge of developing cardiovascular insults in the form of, as I stated, as I enumerated earlier. Therefore, accounting for almost twofold increase in the risk of various vascular diseases such as coronary artery disease, strokes, and other various vascular related disorders. So, therefore, the diabetes is an important metabolic triggering factor that contributing to the vivid variety of the cardiovascular insults and renal insults or renal insufficiency. As we all know, the diabetes mellitus, particularly of type 2 category, is a progressive disorder. In fact, it was defined by a multiple pathophysiological defects. As we all know, the monotherapy alone cannot address all the multiple defects that are encountered in patients with diabetes mellitus. That is the reason this more particular monotherapy in patients with diabetes mellitus may lead to failure to maintain the glycemic status over a period of time. That means in patients with diabetes mellitus, there are several pathophysiological factors may contribute to the hyperglycemia or uncontrolled glycemic status. So inadequate or uncontrolled or inadequately optimized glycemic status due to multiple defects in patients with diabetes mellitus. So the monotherapy with any pharmacological intervention alone cannot address all the multiple defects in patients with diabetes mellitus that lead to failure to achieve the glycemic status over a period of time. So as I alluded earlier, by the time of the diagnosis of the diabetes mellitus is made, 50% of the beta cell mass is almost non-functional. That means beta cell mass, beta cell populace, beta cell function is deteriorated. 50% of the beta cell function is deteriorated. 50% of the beta cell mass, beta cell volume, beta cell density will get declined by the time of diagnosis of the diabetes mellitus is made. So the target, HbA1c target is paramount to improve the beta cell function, beta cell mass by utilizing a combination of therapy, combination of advanced pharmaceutical molecules, particularly SGLT2, sodium glucose cotransporter 2, is often in combination with the dipeptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors. So this particular combination is immensely beneficial in halting or negating the further deterioration of the beta cell malfunction, and also to improve the beta cell function, beta cell populace by administration of, by utilization of, or by institution of a combination of SGLT2 as well as DPP4 inhibitors. So glycemic control, as we all know, they deteriorates over a period of time, regardless of the pharmacological measures utilizing or initiated. So prompt or adequate stringent glycemic control is paramount important to improve the compliance, to improve the drug adherence, and to negate the various life-threatening hazardous cardiovascular insults or vascular complications. As we all know, uncontrolled diabetes mellitus increases the risk of long-term cardiovascular insults, cardiovascular complications in the form of acute myocardial infarction, either fatal or non-fatal myocardial infarction, fatal or non-fatal stroke, including cardiovascular death. That could be uncontrolled by utilization of a combination therapy rather than the monotherapy. As we know, the 1% rise in glycosylated or A1C concentration is associated with 20% increase in the risk of heart failure, 12% increase in the risk of cardiovascular death, 7% increase in the risk of major cardiovascular events. Therefore, according to Wikipedia's United Kingdom, prospective diabetic study has shown clearly unfolds 1%, just 1% reduction in the glycosylated hemoglobin concentration, just 1% reduction in the HbA1c concentration is associated with greater reduction in the complications, and that is clinically as well as clinically significant. That means, summarily, 1% elevation of the glycosylated hemoglobin or HbA1c concentration is associated with a 20% increase in the risk of heart failure, 12% increase in the risk of death, 7% increase in the risk of events. Therefore, 1% reduction in the HbA1c concentration associated with remarkable reduction in the all these complications, 20% reduction in the heart failure, 12% reduction in the cardiovascular death, 7% reduction in the cardiovascular ailments, which is very statistically and clinically extremely significant. The maintaining the glycemic targets is very difficult to achieve. A significant number of patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus often have poor glycemic control owing to not stringently following lifestyle modifications, oftenly taking monotherapy with metformin. So, significant number of patients with diabetes mellitus in our country oftenly due having poor glycemic control due to various reasons. One reason is lack of physical activity, lack of proper dieting, lack of adherence to the diabetic diet, and also oftenly many patients are oftenly on monotherapy with metformin. So these are the important reasons are contributing to inadequate or poorly glycemic control in diabetic patients in our country. The glycemic control tends to be declined over time with monotherapy. So if any patient is on monotherapy, oftenly glycemic control oftenly tend to decline. So the patient oftenly tend to develop inadequate glycemic control, and often slowly transgress into development of various vascular events. So therefore, maintaining glycemic targets is oftenly very difficult in our country by just oftenly utilization of monotherapy. The consequences of the delayed intervention interpreting the VADT results. So according to VADT, after entering the VADT, after initiation intensive treatment with combination of anti-diabetic or oral hypoglycemic agents are immensely beneficial in not only achieving adequate or optimal glycemic parameters and also counteracting and also improving the non-glycemic parameters like obesity, hypertension, so on and so forth. So the sequential treatment approach is very important. The sequential treatment approach is oftenly compromised or compounded by substantial clinical inertia or physician inertia to timely intensification of the therapy. So substantial clinical inertia is existing at each sequential intensification step. So if you look at very carefully, the patient is on monotherapy with one oral hypoglycemic agent or oral anti-diabetic agents. Oftenly, the patient is adding second drug. In this particular patient takes at least 1.2 to 2.9 years. That means the patient who are on monotherapy may remain inadequately controlled hyperglycemia due to clinical or substantial inertia, physician inertia, because of the lack of timely intensification of therapy. And second drug will be added almost 1.2 to 2.9 years. And third drug will be added almost 6.9 to 7.2 years after addition of second drug. Again, addition of insulin is also taking lot of. That means there is a remarkable delay in the initiation and intensification of therapy owing to substantial clinical as well as physics inertia that contribute to inadequate control of glycemic status or glycemic parameters that eventually contributing to early genesis of atherosclerosis or coronary vascular events or peripheral vascular diseases, vascular events, and chronic renal insufficiency. So therefore, improving the glycemic control in patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus, achieving a glycemic goals sooner may reduce the risk of complications. That means achieving glycemic control by utilization of a combination of therapy is immensely beneficial in fighting or negating various vascular complications in the form of fatal or non-fatal myocardial infarction, fatal or non-fatal stroke, and cardiovascular deaths, and as well as renal parameters or neurovascular complications. So, according to ADA, American Diabetic Association, EASD guidelines in 2018 recommendations. So, the recommendation according to 2018 ADA guidelines, initial early combination is very important, is more important, more significant than monotherapy. So the ADA, EASD, AACA, ACA recommending sequential addition of type 2 diabetes mellitus therapies vary from lifestyle modification, lifestyle changes to monotherapy followed by combination therapy. In both metformin, as we all know, the metformin is first line of drug treatment if tolerated and if not contraindicated, and if EGFR is not lower. So, if metformin is the initial drug of choice, provided if it is tolerated, provided not contraindicated, provided not low GFR, and if glycemic control is not achieved within 3 months after institution of the metformin therapy, prompt addition of either second or third oral agent should be considered. Triple drug oral hypoglycemic drug therapy is suggested if target HbA1c goal is not achieved within 3 months after institution of the dual therapy. Therefore, the dual therapy and triple therapy with the oral hypoglycemic agents with you to achieve target HbA1c concentration is paramount. If monotherapy fails to achieve the glycemic status within 3 months after institution of the metformin or monotherapy. Therefore, the patient could be achieved target for 6 months after diagnosis due to sequential addition. This prolonged exposure to hyperglycemia may augment the risk of long-term microvascular complications. It includes diabetic retinopathy, diabetic nephropathy, diabetic neuropathy, as well as macrovascular complications which include fatal or non-fatal cerebral stroke, fatal or non-fatal myocardial infarction, including cardiovascular death. So the combination therapy is immensely beneficial in negating all microvascular and macrovascular insults. So, American Diabetic Association ADA, AACA 2019 guidelines recommendations includes choosing the glucose lowering medication is very important, particularly those in patients that establish atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease or chronic kidney disease. In ASCVD as well as in CKD patients, choosing the glycemic lowering medicine is very important. As we all know, metformin is the initial drug of choice. Suppose if the metformin is unless contraindicated or not tolerated. Suppose for instance in patients with established atherosclerotic cardiovascular diseases in which either GLP-1 receptor agonist or SGLT2 receptor antagonist, sodium glucose cotransporter inhibitor to be addition or to be added, to be administered. Particularly those patients with HbA1c concentration above the target value, DPP-4 inhibitor, dipeptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitor is also added. Those patients with established heart failure or established chronic kidney disease is predominant, in whom DPP-4 inhibitor except saccharidotin or SGLT2 receptor antagonist is preferred. particularly those patients with established CKD and heart failure, SGLT2 receptor antagonists to be added along with metformin, and those patients in whom HbA1c concentration above the target, DPP4 inhibitor, peptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors, except saxagliptin to be added. Therefore, the choosing the glycemic agent, anti-hyperglycemic agent or oral hypoglycemic agents or oral anti-diabetic agent is very important. Depends upon the predominance of the atherosclerotic vascular disease or predominance of CKD or H heart failure. Therefore, ASCVD patients initially start with GLP-1 or SGLT2, subsequently in combination DPP4 inhibitors, whereas established CKD patients and heart failure start with SGLT2 and subsequently DPP4 inhibitor except saxagliptin. So ASCE guidelines recommending clearly the SGLT2 receptor antagonist as the first drug of choice after metformin. Therefore, after metformin, SGLT2 receptor antagonist, sodium glucose co-transporter 2 inhibitor is the first drug of choice. So if the HbA1c concentration is less than A1c at the time of entry, the monotherapy is oftenly metformin. Subsequently, combination of GLP-1 receptor agonist, SGLT2 receptor antagonist, DPP4 inhibitors, thiazolidinones, and alpha-glucosidase inhibitors, sulfonylureas, so on and so forth. Those patients with HbA1c concentration is more than 7.5%. You start with the dual therapy. Instead of monotherapy, start with the dual therapy and subsequently with the triple therapy. Those patients with entry HbA1c concentration more than 9, if no symptoms, start dual therapy or triple therapy, is often in conjunction with the insulin also preferable with you to achieving the glycemic parameters as well as non-glycemic parameters. According to ADA 2019 guidelines, choosing the glucose lowering medication if compelling need to minimize the hypoglycemia. Suppose if there is a compelling need to minimize the hypoglycemic episodes, DPP4, dipeptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors are very preferred with you to avoid the recurrent episodes of the hypoglycemia. So choosing the glucose lowering medications if compelling need to minimize the hypoglycemia in those with or without established atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease or CKD. So the recommendation for initial combination, the SGLT2, sodium glucose co-transporter inhibitors, dipeptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors are recommended as a second and third line of management after metformin. Should they go for combination of SGLT2 receptor antagonists as well as DPP4 inhibitors to be added along with metformin as the dual therapy or triple therapy with you to achieve the prompt or adequate or optimal glycemic status and also for negating various vascular insults. Therefore, the combination of SGLT2 receptor antagonists, dipeptidyl peptidase 4 or DPP4 inhibitors may be added to metformin. Therefore, in patients who cannot, those patients who can't tolerate metformin, particularly those patients who are in whom the EGFR is very low, SGLT2 receptor antagonists and DPP4 inhibitors are the best treatment options used in combination at any stage of patients, at any stage of diabetes mellitus. Therefore, their complementary mechanism of action and make SGLT2 receptor antagonists like dapagliflozin, canagliflozin, empagliflozin, remogliflozin, edogliflozin, so on, as well as DPP4 inhibitors, dipeptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors or gliptins. Combination is a suitable option for those patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus. Sodium glucose co-transporter 2 inhibitors, particularly empagliflozin. As we all know, gliflozins, particularly empagliflozin, inhibits SGLT2 receptor antagonists by insulin-dependent mechanism to remove excess glucose in urine. As we all know, the gliflozin acts at proximal convoluted tubule, particularly at S1 and S2 segment of the proximal convoluted tubule. Normally, the glucose get excreted or filtered at glomerulus. This filtered glucose at glomerulus is almost reaching the proximal convoluted tubule, where it get almost 90% of the glucose, filtered glucose is resorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule, particularly in the S1 S2 segment of the proximal convoluted tubule under the influence of SGLT2 receptors. Whereas the rest of the 10% of the glucose, filtered glucose, get resorbed in the S3 segment of the proximal convoluted tubule influenced by the SGLT1 receptors. So the filtered glucose is resorbed mainly under the influence of SGLT2 receptor, which were located in the proximal convoluted tubule, particularly S1 and S2 segment of the proximal convoluted tubule. Hardly 10% of the filtered glucose is resorbed through the S3 segment of the proximal convoluted tubule under the influence of SGLT1 receptors. Whereas this particular gliflozin, empagliflozin, block the SGLT2 receptors particularly, and therefore interferes. Blockade of the SGLT2 receptors by the gliflozin or empagliflozin interferes the resorption of the glucose in the proximal convoluted tubule. As a result, the patient develops intense glycosuria along with osmotic diuresis. So the beneficial effects are mainly due to intense glucosuria as well as osmotic diuresis or natriuresis. Therefore, gliflozin confers a remarkable beneficials, which includes there is a decreased hyperfiltration and decreased uric acid, decreased albuminuria, decreased blood pressure as well as arterial stiffness, increased LDL-C, decreased insulin secretion, increased plasma glucose, decreased plasma glucose.
Mind you do?
Slides are not visible. So, because of the osmotic diuresis and natriuresis, what will happen? It reduces the incidence, it reduces blood pressure, both systolic blood pressure as well as diastolic blood pressure, and also improve the heart failure, reduce the incidence of the heart failure with hospitalization, recurrent hospitalization with heart failure, and going to increase excretion of the glucose in the blood, in the urine. There is a decrease epicardial fat and body fat and decrease in the total body weight and body mass index also. Empagliflozin, as we all know, empagliflozin confers consistent efficacy at different stages of the disease. Therefore, the monotherapy oftenly fails in achieving the glycemic status, oftenly fails in achieving the target A1C concentration. That's why addition of SGLT2 receptor antagonist, particularly empagliflozin, along with metformin, is immensely beneficial in achieving the target glycemic status as well as target A1C concentration, HbA1C concentration, or HbA1C concentration, or glycemic concentration. The efficacy of the empagliflozin.
నీ హాట్స్పాట్ ఆఫ్ చేసినావు ఇప్పుడు వస్తుంది చూడు. హాట్స్పాట్ ఆన్ చేసిన ఇంతమంది ఆఫ్ చేసిన ఇంతమంది. హలో, అవునవును, అది హాట్స్పాట్ ఆఫ్ చేసాడు మనోడు ఇంతమంది సడన్గా చేస్తున్నాడు. హాట్స్పాట్ ఆఫ్ చేసిండు ఇంతకుముందు, స్వాగత్ ఆఫ్ చేసిండు ఇంతకుముందు సడన్గా, అది పోయిందన్నమాట ఇంతకుముందు. మళ్ళీ చేస్తుండ్రు రీకనెక్ట్ చేస్తుంది నాదే. ఏం చేయలేం, మనోడు నా ఫోన్ పట్టుకొని ఆఫ్ చేసాడు.
All the slides are explain the slides.
వస్తుంది చేస్తున్నాడు ఇప్పుడు.
The slides are there. Problem. Slides are there. You can continue. At least they can able to hard my voice. Audio is not. If they are able to listen my voice is enough. Video is not required. At least slides and.
Bad network quality.
Hello. My voice is audible. Yeah, my voice is audible. Mute. Okay, mute the video. Mute the video. Because they want to listen my voice very clearly. Mute the video. Now, it's okay. Now,
ఓకే సార్.
okay.
ఇట్స్ ఓకే.
Okay, we. Okay. So, efficacy of the empagliflozin is very, very pivotal trials. 24 and after 24 and 76 weeks of therapy with empagliflozin. If you observe very carefully, after 24 weeks of therapy with the empagliflozin, combination therapy is with metformin, sulfonylureas, and empagliflozin, and HbA1c concentration was declining to almost 1.6. It means A1c concentration was declined by at least 1.76 after 24 weeks of combination therapy. After 76 weeks of therapy with empagliflozin, combination of empagliflozin with other more hypoglycemic agents, A1c concentration was remarkably declined by at least 1.7%. That indicates the combination of oral hypoglycemic agents, particularly empagliflozin with other oral hypoglycemic agents, is immensely beneficial in not only achieving the glycemic status and also achieving the target A1c concentration by less than 7%, and there is decrease in the remarkable decline in the HbA1c concentration by 1.7% with the combination of empagliflozin with other oral hypoglycemic molecules. As we all know, there is an important landmark trial, is the EMPERIC trial. The EMPERIC trial is a very robust landmark trial. The trial clearly states that there is a 14% decline in the 3-point MACE. That means the primary composite endpoints, which includes fatal or non-fatal myocardial infarction, fatal or non-fatal stroke, including cardiovascular death. These 3-point MACE is remarkably declined by 14%. EMPERIC also unfolds, states that 38% decrease in the cardiovascular death, 32% decrease in the all-cause mortality, 35% decline in the hospitalization to heart failure, 39% decline in the new onset of worsening nephropathy. Therefore, EMPERIC is a very important landmark trial, clearly stating that there is a remarkable improvement in the cardiovascular events. SGLT2 receptor antagonists, the clinical benefits are very, very important. The SGLT2 receptor antagonists like Cana, EMPA, the empagliflozin, particularly empagliflozin, confers a remarkable, vivid variety of clinical benefits. The benefits of the kidney, it includes due to owing to increase or augmenting glucose excretion or glycosuria, what it can cause reducing both fasting as well as postprandial blood sugar, particularly glycosuria due to SGLT2 receptor antagonists can cause remarkable improvement in postprandial hypoglycemia as well as glycosylated hemoglobin concentration or HbA1c concentration. HbA1c concentration was reduced at least 0.6 to 1%. Therefore, 1% decline in the A1c concentration as well as achieving the postprandial hyperglycemia, improving the postprandial hyperglycemia owing to increased glucose excretion, internal due to utilization of SGLT2 receptor antagonists. And also owing to marked or remarkable aggressive glycosuria also can cause a loss of energy calories. This in turn leading to modest decrease in the body weight or weight loss. At least 2 to 3 cases of weight loss may occur, may witness within 3 months after institution of the SGLT2 receptor antagonist. And also, SGLT2 receptor antagonist also causes increased sodium excretion. Along with glycosuria, it also can cause nitriuresis, osmotic diuresis, nitriuresis, or increased sodium excretion. This in turn leading to decreased sodium load, and it also lead to drop in blood pressure. There is a fall in systolic blood pressure as well as diastolic blood pressure. Therefore, increased sodium excretion and reduced sodium overload, osmotic diuresis or nitriuresis not only can cause fall in systolic as well as diastolic blood pressure and also reduces the heart failure incidence. Heart failure with hospitalization with heart failure will be improved. So there are myriads of the benefits are conferred by the SGLT2 receptor antagonists, particularly the empagliflozin. Therefore, SGLT2 receptor inhibition confers glycosuria as well as nitriuresis. Glycosuria, what will happen? Glycosuria can cause negative calorie balance, leading to remarkable decline in the total body fat and mass, and also the considerable decrease in the epicardial body fat, decrease in the vascular or cardiac inflammation, decrease in the cardiac or vascular fibrosis, therefore confers remarkable cardiac protection, therefore, and also improve the cardiac remodeling. Therefore, glycosuria can cause decrease in the body weight, body mass, body fatty mass, epicardial fat, decrease vascular inflammation, decrease cardiac fibrosis, and also improve the cardiac remodeling or negating the cardiovascular remodeling or even reverse the cardiac vascular remodeling, and therefore confers cardiovascular protection. The glycosuria also can cause fall in glycosylated hemoglobin concentration, can cause a regression of the vascular atherosclerosis and therefore decrease in the incidence of the coronary events and the vascular events. A1C concentration also, decreased A1C concentration also causes decrease in the vascular inflammation, decreased glucose toxicity, and therefore confers a remarkable cardiac as well as renal protection. The glycosuria also can cause increased glucosuria. Glycosuria due to SGLT2 inhibition also can confer increased glucosuria increased uricosuriya, then in turn leading to decreased plasma uric acid, hypouricemia. This can cause remarkable vascular atherosclerosis regression and regression of the vascular atherosclerosis, and therefore preventing the various vascular events or coronary events in the form of acute or fatal myocardial infarction, fatal or non-fatal stroke, including cardiovascular death, and also improve the cardiac contractility, therefore immensely indirectly beneficial in patients with heart failure. Therefore, the glycosuria and uricosuriya, decrease HbA1c concentration, decrease epicardial body fat, all these processes are important beneficial effects, ultimately confers cardiac as well as renal protection. SGLT2 inhibition due to empagliflozin or any other gliflozin and it confers nitriuresis or osmotic diuresis. Nitriuresis or osmotic diuresis can cause fall in blood pressure, both systolic blood pressure as well as diastolic blood pressure, and also improves arterial vascular stiffness. That means there is a decrement in the arterial stiffness that eventually confers a cardiac as well as renal protection. And nitriuresis also can cause nitriuresis also can cause decrease in the plasma volume and decreases the myocardial stretch. Therefore, decrease in the myocardial stretch due to decrease in the plasma volume, in turn due to nitriuresis due to SGLT2 inhibition, can cause decrease in incidence of toxic or malignant ventricular tachyarrhythmias like ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation. Therefore, malignant ventricular tachyarrhythmias like ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation can be prevented, can be thwarted or negated with institution of the SGLT2 receptor inhibitor and eventually confers cardiac protection. Similarly, the decrease in the plasma volume also can cause remarkable activation of the ACE2 as well as Ang1 to 7. Owing to activation of the ACE2 as well as angiotensin 1 to 7 can cause decrease in the incidence of the toxic or malignant ventricular tachyarrhythmias, such as ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation. and therefore decrease the incidence of the sudden cardiac death. So sudden cardiac death can be preventable by institution of the SGLT2 receptor antagonists, particularly empagliflozin. Therefore, empagliflozin or SGLT2 receptor antagonists or SGLT2 inhibition confers glycosuria, bacteriuresis, decrease atherosclerosis, decrease body fat, decrease incidence of ventricular tachyarrhythmias, and also decrease in the systolic blood pressure, decrease in incidence of the heart failure with hospitalization. So, myriads of the benefits of myriads of the clinical benefits can be conferred by utilization of the SGLT2 receptor antagonists. Then come to dipeptidyl peptidyl 4 inhibitors, particularly linagliptin. So DPP-4 inhibitors provide an effective pharmacological intervention in patient type 2 diabetes mellitus. Following food intake, what will happen? The food may enter in the intestine where following food intake there is increased expression or copious expression of the GLP-1 and subsequently this GLP-1 reaches the pancreas wherein the GLP-1 stimulates both beta cells as well as alpha cells. Stimulation of the beta cells lead to copious expression of the insulin and stimulation of the alpha cells leading to glucagon suppression. So the GLP-1 increase the insulin secretion as well as and decrease the glucagon suppression, glucagon expression. So the beta cell stimulation with insulin expression or insulin secretion increases the glucose utilization by muscle tissue as well as adipose tissue, and glucagon suppression decreases the hepatic glucose need, that is hepatic gluconeogenesis, and therefore improving the overall glucose control. Therefore, following food intake, what will happen? There is increased GLP-1 secretion where it reaches the pancreas and stimulate the beta cell and stimulate the alpha cells, and in turn there is an increased glucose utilization, decreased gluconeogenesis. That in turn control the glycemic status, improve the glycemic status. Whereas unfortunately this increased GLP-1 soon after expression from the intestine is nullified or inhibited by an enzyme called DPP-4, that is dipeptidyl peptidyl 4 inhibitor. This particular enzyme immediately inhibits the glucose GLP-1, this particular hormone. Therefore, institution of the DPP-4 inhibitors like gliptins, dipeptidyl peptidyl 4 inhibitors are known to have clinically relevant effect on HbA1c, a very low risk of hypoglycemia, and are generally associated with a favorable safety as well as tolerability profile. Therefore, the DPP-4 inhibitors inhibits the DPP-4 enzyme and therefore improve the concentration of the GLP-1 in the systemic circulation, and in turn reaches the pancreas and improve the insulin secretion or improve the insulin expression, and also decrease the glucagon suppression, and in turn increase the glucose utilization by muscle tissue as well as adipose tissue, and decrease the gluconeogenesis in the liver. So therefore, the combination of lean and EMPA do not influence the PK/PD levels of the lean and EMPA, and no drug-to-drug interaction if these two drugs are combined together. The complementary glucose lowering activities of both SGLT2 as well as DPP-4 inhibitors in patient type 2 diabetes mellitus. SGLT2 at kidney level, it increases the glucosuria and therefore decrease in the body weight as well as decrease in the systolic blood pressure. Because of the augmented glucosuria, decrease the glucotoxicity. Whereas DPP-4 inhibitors at gut level, it increases the incretin effect, increase the GLP-1 concentration as well as increase in GIP concentration. Therefore, these are confers a weight neutrality. At pancreas level, these two and SGLT2 as DPP-4, particularly DPP-4 inhibitors, particularly linagliptin, and increase the beta cell sensitivity, increase the beta cell insulin sensitivity, and increase the glucagon, and increase the insulin expression, decrease the glucagon secretion. Therefore, improve the hyperglycemia, and also confers pleiotropic benefits. Therefore, combination of DPP-4 with SGLT2 confers a remarkable beneficial effects both at kidney level, at pancreas and at gut level. The complementary pathways and selective physiologic effects of SGLT2 receptor antagonists and DPP-4 inhibitors. So, the DPP-4 inhibitors confers a glucose-dependent insulin secretion. Glucose-dependent decrease in glucagon secretion is achieved by DPP-4 inhibition. And DPP-4 inhibition also can increase the beta cell sensitivity as well as beta cell function. DPP-4 inhibition also can cause degradation of the incretin and also confers anti-inflammatory effects. Whereas SGLT2 inhibition with SGLT2 receptor antagonists, particularly empagliflozin, increase the glucagon secretion and also improve the beta cell mass, beta cell function and decrease the glucotoxicity. So the complementary glucose lowering activities of the DPP-4 inhibitors and SGLT2 receptor antagonists in patient type 2 diabetes mellitus. SGLT2 receptor antagonists, particularly empagliflozin, confers a newest and hyperglycemic class. It inhibits renal glucose resorption and produces remarkable glycosuria and promotes weight loss of at least 2.5 to 3.5 kg within 3 months and decrease in systolic blood pressure as well as diastolic blood pressure, and the possibility of hypoglycemia is very, very low. Therefore, whereas DPP-4 inhibitors, it is a clinical use for the more than 10 years old. It inhibits GLP-1 as well as GIP and stimulates, it increases the secretion of the GLP-1 and GIP, gastrointestinal peptide, and also stimulates insulin secretion from the beta cell, inhibits the glucagon expression from the alpha cell, and weight neutral, and the possibility and the risk of hypoglycemia is very, very low. So the complementary glucose lowering effects can be witnessed, can be encountered with utilization of SGLT2 as well as DPP-4 inhibitors by various different mechanisms of action. The benefits of the DPP-4 as well as SGLT2 receptor antagonists individually. Empagliflozin can decrease the HbA1c concentration, but as well as fasting plasma glucose levels, and weight loss is a priority. Therefore, immensely beneficial in patients with atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, heart failure, chronic kidney disorder. The linagliptin also helps in reduction of HbA1c and very ease of and greater tolerability and can be conferred even in patients with renal impairment. The complementary efficacy, less like combination of SGLT2 EMPA with DPP-4 inhibitors LINA is immensely beneficial. The less glycosuria potentially means no side effects. The side effects related to SGLT2 and DPP-4 inhibitor are very, very few. So the possibility of polyuria and genital mycotic infections are very, very low with utilization of the combination of SGLT2 and DPP-4 inhibitors. Come to clinical evidence. The combination of empagliflozin with linagliptin, which is available as Azargio, and it was approved by DCGI in 2017, US FDA indication adjunct to diet and exercise to improve the glycemic status in adults with diabetes mellitus when treated with both empagliflozin as well as linagliptin. Empagliflozin is indicated to reduce the risk of cardiovascular death in type 2 diabetes mellitus patients and also establish cardiovascular disease. The limitations of use not recommended for patients is not this particular combination Azargio, empagliflozin, linagliptin is not recommended in patients type 1 diabetes mellitus or for the treatment of diabetic ketoacidosis. This particular combination of empagliflozin with lina, Azargio, is not studied in patients with a history of pancreatitis. This particular combination of Azargio, empagliflozin with linagliptin is recommended. Dose is around 10 milligrams and 5 mg, 10 milligrams of empagliflozin and 5 milligrams of linagliptin it should be given once a day, should be taken in the morning with or without food. Dose may be increased to 25 milligrams of empagliflozin and 5 milligrams of linagliptin once a day. It should not be initiated. Those patients with eGFR of less than 45 ml per minute per 1.73 meters by body surface. That means this particular combination should not be used. Those patients with eGFR of less than 45 ml per minute per 1.73 meters by body surface area. The adverse reactions the adverse reactions with the Azad-Dio, adverse reactions of EMPA with Lina is extremely very rare. The most common adverse events that are encountered are urinary tract infection, nasopharyngitis, and upper respiratory tract infection. Often these adverse events are oftenly self-limiting, do not require any therapy. And precaution and warning. This particular combination to be prescribed, to be initiated very carefully in patients with pancreatitis, heart failure, ketoacidosis, and acute kidney injury, impairment of renal function, necrotizing fasciitis or the perineum or Fournier's gangrene, genital mycotic infection. So this particular combination of EMPA with Lina should be carefully instituted in patients with pancreatitis, ketoacidosis, and Fournier's gangrene, genital mycotic infection, as well as renal impediment or renal compromised renal function. The combination of the empagliflozin with the linagliptin as a FDC phase 3 clinical trials. The 4 pivotal studies conducted to support the regulatory submissions for the treatment of adults with type 2 diabetes mellitus. Therefore, the initial combination in drug-naive patients, initial combination with metformin backbone, and sequential therapy in metformin backbone. These are the various pivotal trials, initial combination, second line of therapy, and sequential therapy. So the efficacy of the oral fixed dose empagliflozin with linagliptin relative to the respective individual components. Conclusively, the safety and tolerability of the combination of EMPA with Lina in patients type 2 diabetes mellitus. Conclusively, the EMPA and Lina as therapy, as add-on therapy to the metformin for 52 weeks is very tolerable, highly safe, highly efficacious in not only achieving glycemic status and also improving the non-glycemic parameters like obesity or weight reduction, as well as systolic blood pressure reduction, and numerically lower incidence of genital mycosis infection or genital urinary infection, genital urinary tract infection. So the incidence of genital urinary tract infection, genital mycosis are very low with the combination of empagliflozin with linagliptin. The DPP4 inhibitors moderate risk of genitourinary tract infection when combined with the SGLT2 receptor antagonists. Usually SGLT2 receptor antagonists increase the risk of urinary tract infection. When you combine DPP4 inhibitors with SGLT2 receptor antagonists, the incidence of genital urinary tract infection was very remarkably low. This is because this particular DPP4 inhibitors inhibits DPP4 enzyme in some bacteria and fungi. That's why the combination of SGLT2 receptor antagonists and DPP4 inhibitors immensely beneficial in lowering the genitourinary tract infection or genetic mycotic infection. This is because the DPP4 inhibitors inhibits an enzyme DPP4 dipeptidyl peptidase 4 enzyme in some bacteria and fungi. Therefore, the combination compared with SGLT2 inhibitors, compared with SGLT2 receptor antagonists, this particular combination therapy of empagliflozin with Lina has beneficial effects on HbA1c concentration, postprandial or fasting or postprandial blood glucose concentration, total cholesterol as well as triglycerides. The combination therapy was associated with lower risk of consistent genital infection. It is very, very logical to hypothesize that the reduction in the risk of consistent genital mycotic infection, genital urinary tract infection, it might be caused by relief of glycosuria by exerting glucose lowering effect when addition of Lina. Low doses was associated with significantly more reduction in the body weight as well as diastolic blood pressure and less increase in the chance of total cholesterol as well as LDL-C. Low doses of SGLT2 receptor antagonists may be a better choice for clinical use in combination. 5 minutes. The combination of SGLT2 receptor antagonists and DPP4 inhibitors is very attractive treatment option for many reasons. SGLT2 receptor antagonists, a component leads to moderate reduction in the BP, and added benefits in patients with hypertension is a common commodity. While combination therapy is not required to study, combination is very suitable for single pill formulation to be administered as a once daily. Therefore, combination therapy is immensely beneficial in improving the cardiovascular events and MACE, 3-point MACE, and as well as primary composite endpoints. Therefore, single pill combination, it eases the treatment burden, reducing the pill burden as well as bill burden, and also improving the cardiovascular outcomes. Therefore, the patient benefits with EMPA and LENA FDC combination, highly efficacious with inconvenience single tablet, single mini small tablet, 2 to 4 times higher odds of patients reaching goal of A1C compared to individual agents. Early achievement of glycemic status is very important. The combination offers extraglycemic benefits like weight reduction, weight control, as well as blood pressure control. Empagliflozin also confers cardiorenal protection as well as cardiovascular death reduction. Absence of any additional safety concern as well as drug-to-drug interaction. There is a potentially lower incidence of genitourinary tract infection with combination of EMPA and LENA as Azargio in comparison to SGLT2 alone. The key messages for combination of EMPA with LENA, the combination therapy with the complementary mechanism of action can play a significant role in type 2 diabetes mellitus. Therefore, empagliflozin with linagliptin combination is the only true once daily fixed dose that comes in a small pill. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving an opportunity to say a few words about the combination FDC of LENA and EMPA. Thank you.